Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1AAuto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks.
In this video, we're going to show you how to service the front brakes on this 2003 Nissan Frontier. Same procedure, right to left, as well as 2001 to 2004 Frontier. You'll need new brakes from 1AAuto, 22, 21, and 14 millimeter sockets and a ratchet, jack and jack stands, 6 millimeter Allen socket or key, large and small flat blade screwdriver, circlip pliers, hammer and chisel, pipe for extra leverage. You'll also need some bearing grease and rags.
21.
If you don't have the benefit of air tools, you'll want to loosen your lug nuts with the vehicle on the ground, then raise and secure the vehicle, and then remove the lug nuts, wheel and tire. Now, a quick inspection of the brakes. You can see the outer pad right in between there actually has plenty of life left. You can see the inner pad through the check hole here, and there's actually good life left. These brakes are actually in good condition, but we are going to change them out just to show you how to do it. You can also check your rotors just by running the back of your finger along them. Make sure there's no deep grooves or anything in them. Turn the wheels by grabbing them, or use the steering wheel, and then you can see two 14 millimeter bolts hold the calipers to the caliper bracket, and we'll use a 14 millimeter socket and socket wrench to remove those. Fast forward here. Using a large screwdriver to pry the caliper out, and you're prying against the rotor. This just helps loosen the caliper up, compresses the pistons back in a little bit, and allows you to pull the caliper up and off easier. Now you'll want to remove the pads. They really should just kind of pull right out, but we'll use a screwdriver to help pry them out. And now we can pull the stainless steel slides that are in the caliper brackets out. To remove the rotor, you'll need to pull the hub cover off. It's a 6 millimeter Allen bolt, and we put the screwdriver in the disc to hold it in place. And we'll fast forward here.
And then there are 6 more 14 millimeter bolts that you're just going to need to loosen up. Keep that screwdriver in there for resistance, and I'll fast forward as I do that.
Two 22 millimeter bolts hold the caliper bracket on, one there, and you'll see we'll use our ratchet, and we'll use a pipe also for some extra leverage to get those bolts started. And fast forward as we remove those.
Now go ahead and with that 6 millimeter Allen key or the socket and ratchet, remove the cover that goes to the hub assembly, and I'll fast forward as I do that. You're going to need to wipe out that area so that you can access the circlip that holds the drive shaft in place. You'll notice that there's a clip in there that you're going to have to expand with your circlip pliers. Place it in between the two ears and expand it and pull it out. See here, the method that we found to be best is to insert the pliers, expand the clip, and pull that whole silver collar off with it, so that that collar actually helps pull it off. Then you're going to meet with another groove there at the end of the axle shaft, and you might need to use a screwdriver to help expand it. That's what I've done here, and then go ahead and pull those pieces, both pieces off. Now you're going to find behind there 2 Phillips head screws, small screws. Go ahead and remove those and set them aside. I'm going to use a small flat blade screwdriver to pry that ring off there. Pull that off and set that aside. I'm going to insert that small flat blade screwdriver and counterclockwise twist off the threaded collar there, and go ahead and set that aside when you've got that off. Now you can pull your rotor assembly off, and be careful of that outer bearing that comes with it. Use a 14mm socket and impact wrench to completely remove those 6 14mm bolts, and I will fast forward as I do that. I've got those two pieces of 2x4 set up so that I can knock the center hub assembly off from the rotor. You can see it's necessary for me to spray some penetrating oil there to help with it. Then I'm going to use a chisel and a heavy hammer to knock it free. I'm going to go and move around in a circle on that hub portion and free it up. And we got a new brake rotor up there, and we're going to place that hub assembly back in and start with by hand reinstalling those 14mm bolts that hold the hub to the hub assembly to the rotor. Now I'm going to clean out the inside of that hub assembly with a towel. Make sure that I get as much grease as I can out of there, being careful of the bearing and not wanting to get any dirt in there while I'm cleaning it out. I'm going to use some wheel bearing grease, grease the inside of the hub, and you can see I'm cleaning off the outer bearing there. I'm going to put that aside for a second and just by hand take as much grease as I can and put it into the hub, packing it in as much as I can, and then putting that outer bearing back in place and adding even more grease to that. And I'm going to clean off that axle area right there, and once I've done that, gotten all the dirt and extra old grease off of it, I'm going to apply a new small coat of grease. Now you can reinstall the rotor with the hub assembly. Be careful about that outer bearing, that it doesn't pop out on you. Now you can go ahead and start back in with the threaded sleeve or collar there and start it by hand, and then use your screwdriver and work it back on until it's tight. And then what you're going to have to do here is line up the holes in that threaded collar with that second one that has the 2 Phillips head screws that go through it. And basically you want that threaded collar to be tight, but then back it off enough so that some of the holes, at least 2 of those holes, line up, and you can get a screw into both of them. So here I'm just going back and forth with it until I get them to line up. I'll fast forward as I do that. Now once you got those holes lined up, or at least 2 of them, reinstall 2 of those, the 2 Phillips head screws, and I'll fast forward as I do that. Go back in with that third collar there and the circlip that's going to go in front of it, or to the outer portion of the axle, and get your circlip pliers ready and expand it and slide it over it, and you might need a little flat blade screwdriver to help you seat it. Reinstall the cover with the 6mm Allen bolts that go through it. Tighten them up with either your Allen key or your ratchet and socket. I'll fast forward as I do that. I'm going to clean that rotor off of any excess grease that I got on it while I was doing the work, and you want to do the front and the back. The caliper guide, you're going to want to make sure that those slides are free. You can pull it out in the boot and make sure that there's grease in it, and then reinstall it and make sure that the boot is secure. Do that for both. And then we're going to clean up the caliper now, caliper guide I mean, with a wire brush. We'll do the same for the springs that go between the pad and the caliper guide. I'm going to turn that assembly a little bit more so I can get to the back better, and I'm going to reinstall the caliper bracket and the 18mm bolts that hold it in place. I'll go ahead and fast forward as I tighten those up.
And we'll go ahead and torque the bolts between 90 and 100 foot-pounds. Okay, got the screwdriver inserted into the rotor again, and it's holding against the caliper bracket, and I'm going to torque those bolts to 25 foot-pounds.
I'm going to use that screwdriver again to keep that assembly from moving, and I'm going to tighten up those 6mm Allens. Take your brake springs and put them back onto your caliper bracket. And final cleaning of the rotor, front and back, with some brake clean and a rag. I want to use a little brake grease to put on the tabs of the brake pads before you put them into the caliper. Reinstall the brake pads into the caliper guides. Reinstall your caliper and the 14mm bolts that hold it in place to the caliper bracket. And I'll go ahead and fast forward as I tighten those up.
And these bolts should be tightened up between 25 and 30 foot-pounds.
Reinstall your wheel and start your lug nuts by hand. Go ahead and tighten your lug nuts back up. Now torque your lug nuts in a star pattern to 100 foot-pounds.
Before road testing, always pump your brakes up, make sure you get a nice firm pedal, and then do test stops from 5 and 10 miles an hour before road testing. We hope this helps you out. Brought to you by www.oneauto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Please feel free to call us toll-free 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person.